Welcome back to another episode of Analyst Hour. I am your host, Andrew Regan, joined by my co-host, Michael Goldsmith. And today in the studio, we have Stephen Shaw. Some call him the Funky Monkey, some call him the GOAT, some call him the dog this year. Stephen, welcome to Analyst Hour. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys know this is a dream come true for me, and I'm happy to be on finally.
Great. We are so happy to have you on. There is so much to talk about. We just came out of a very exciting week one. But before we jump into things, Stephen, we obviously talk about you every week. We talk uh, about your successes, your skill, your leadership, nothing but glowing things. You have set yourself apart from any other participant in the league where all of us are almost preying on your downfall in a way, just like anyone but Steve. Um, and it's nothing personal, but you have just you have transcended what it means to be an ASL player, and everyone is in awe of you week after week. So I do want to ask you some questions that have been burning in my mind, and I'm sure I'm representing a lot of the people as well. So my first question to you, I'm going to put you on the hot seat for a second. You have gone up against a lot of people in this league. Who defends you the best?
Okay. Um, Top of my head, I can think of two, and I'd probably say one, Matt Schuerk, two is Nick Silva. Schuerk,
Elaborate, break it down.
yeah, Schuerk, he's just an athlete. He knows how to stay in front of me. Um, just bodies me up when I try to drive on him some most of the time, honestly. Uh, Silva, he's like same thing, just size. He's quick. He can move his feet and like something with those two. I'm always thinking this is gonna be a challenge.
Okay. You've obviously played in a lot of tough games as well. Considering you have won the past three championships, you have probably played more ASL games than the average by now. Um, is there a time where it ever crossed your mind or something really got under your skin where you thought to yourself, like, holy, like, I need to kick it into gear if I really want to win this game? And if the answer is no, I respect it.
No, I can think of one. I think it was a teeny weenies where it was like my first year back in the league, and it was like week two against Colin and Carter, and they beat us like 15-1 or something back when we played to 15. I was like, all right, that can't happen anymore. So I was kind of had
They
to
went
kick
on
it.
and won three championships.
Yeah, I mean that's just one that worked for that year. I mean, there's something different every year. Like obviously with the Funky Monkeys, I hurt my ankle bad. That kept me out a few weeks. Um, and then last year, like the league just gets better and better every year. So each year there's just new challenges, new players. So yeah.
Respect it. Another question I have, and you obviously draft last in the first round every year. Um, and obviously you always secure Pat, and we'll definitely talk about you and Pat's dynamic at some point in this episode. But I do want to ask, not just confined to the first round, but is there a player that you would love to draft if given the opportunity, but you have just never got the opportunity? And stay away from the Schuerks or the Cadigans or the Carters of the world. Let's go like second or third round names, because obviously you would want like the first overall pick.
Yeah, Gergis. I've always wanted Gergis, in all honesty. Just he's a smart player, and he's like 3-point shooting in this league is just like the most valuable skill in my opinion in street ball like this. Um, Gergis for sure. Who else? For like first, second round fringe, like Campbell. Campbell's such a smart player. I would love like he just does everything right, makes it easy for everyone else around him. So just off the top of my head, Gergis definitely.
Got it. That was not an answer I was expecting. What about you, Mike?
No, not at all, and, I'm sure that will do wonders for his, trash talking coming up, but,
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah,
was a surprise answer,
We
yeah.
especially
played.
'cause I consider him to be a relatively one-dimensional guy in the league, so that kinda surprises me, but you are right that there's not many players that are more consistent at just catch and shoot and draining threes, and you know what you're getting out of him every year, so I do understand.
Yeah, I'm sure, Steven can kinda take care of the rest. It's gotta be nice to have a wing guy that you could just pop it out to and let Gergis kinda take care of the rest, but a great answer, I just wasn't expecting it. Mike, do you have any questions for Steve before I keep hounding him?
No, you stole my question, who guards you best, so just keep going.
Alright, I wanna save the Pat one for last because obviously that's a glowing question. One question that I am very curious about and very relevant to this season is Michael and I, especially me, were pretty apprehensive when you drafted Tyler for Tyler's sake. We thought it was going to be, I think I quoted, it's going to be the Steve and Pat show, and Tyler is lucky enough to be, there for the ride. Week one would argue that I was, and Mike and I were incorrect. It looks like Pat had a great platform, but I mean, sorry, Tyler had a great platform to do his things. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to rebuttal my past episodes take that Tyler going to you was detrimental for his personal game and why I'm wrong.
Yeah, when I watched that right away, I texted him immediately, and I was like, Tyler, have you watched Analyst Hour? Like Andrew and Mike, they don't think you'd be a good fit for us. And I was like, basically, that's just I don't think that's true. I think coming off fourth man of the year, that's what because he won that, right?
And most improved.
And most improved, right? I'm like, I texted him. I was like, just build off of it. It's street ball at the end of the day. We're just here to have fun. So like, told him he's like probably very likely to start. And then we played couple times before the season, and he played unbelievable. And it's just he's a perfect fit. Fits right in. He plays confident. I told him don't be afraid. Like, there's no shot you can't take because like it's not that serious at the end of the day, and just go out there have fun. And so yeah, you guys right away I was like, all right, that's some motivation right there, not for our team and Tyler too as a player.
Yeah. And obviously you took CJ as well, which I thought was a great pick because the one thing you guys were lacking, obviously you're going to take Pat. So we knew between you and Pat, the one thing you were really lacking was size. You were able to scoop up CJ. Um, how are you planning to balance Tyler and CJ? You obviously drafted them for different reasons. Obviously, I'm sure CJ was expecting to start going in the second round. Tyler was probably content with coming off the bench. It's what he's used to. Also going into third round, you obviously gave Tyler the start. So how are you going to balance those two guys who offer you similar skill sets just in different ways?
So when I draft, like there was really no thought process behind who went first or second when I took both of them, just because I knew I had back-to-back picks there. But I think most of it is going to depend on matchups. Like uh, CJ came in, did a great job on Ryan in the minutes he got on Sunday. But then when we play bigger teams, that makes it tougher on Tyler. Teams like Sizzlers next week for us probably going to try to take advantage of every mismatch they can get. So um, they'll both play a great amount, and I'm very happy, especially just based off week one where we had no chemistry, first time playing together. Very encouraged, so I'm happy with those two for sure.
Cool. And then finally, obviously, you and Pat are known as the most dynamic duo the league has ever seen. What is it that you and Pat have that no other duo in the league has?
That's a great question because I on it like I don't know. I think we play well off each other, right? Like he'll drive, I'll move without the ball, and then he'll hit me. He's a smart player. He's still to this day, I think he's like the most underrated player in this league for everything he does. Like his passing, his playmaking, his defense. His defense is so underrated. Like
I completely agree with that.
throw Pat on any guard and he will make it a challenge. Um, so yeah, I think we both want to win. Um, we both have a lot of friends in this league we want to go at. And I think at the end of the day, it's working, and I'm thrilled he's back. Yeah, feel like he can't break
You'll
us up.
always be in an opportunity to grab him too.
And he sits perfectly too at the end of that first. He's like drafted right where he's valued, I believe too. So
Yeah, no, I think you guys are an incredibly scary duo. I think Pat is such a well-rounded guard, and I think you're right. Like people give him his flowers for complimenting you really well, but I think as an individual player, he has a skill set that is really hard to match at his size, and I think his defense really goes under the radar, and people don't realize it until he's standing across from them. So that's a really good point. Thank you for kind of breaking that down. But guys, we're coming off of a week 1 extravaganza. We were going through our ASL withdrawals. We relapsed. We had a great week. I want to do a quick game by game overview because we actually have a lot to talk about. So, Mike, we're going to go with you. Then we're going to go to Steve, and I'll wrap up. And we're going to start with your game, the Legion taking on Black Bears. Please give me your very high level overview and some takeaways of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just for the audience who may not be aware, obviously there was no Costa, there was no Silva, and Luke had a last second back injury and was replaced by Tequiz. And going on paper, that should not have been that lopsided a match. But I think if you asked most people, they would have taken us. But I certainly wasn't expecting a 22-4 victory. And I think a big reason that happened is 4 out of the 6 players did not have good shooting days or offensive games whatsoever. And those 4 are myself, Arvin, Cole, and Tequizi. Unfortunately, 3 of those 4 happened to be on the Black Bears. And the 2 players who held their own on the offensive end were George and Louis. I think George looked a lot more free this year. I know there was a lot of controversy with him versus Ian's minutes last year. And I think he felt that he deserved a bigger role on a team, which I believe he does. I even said that on last year's Analyst Hour. And he played to his potential. He was way more aggressive than we've seen, crashing the glass frequently. And in terms of Louis, I mean, Louis had come into this league. If you went to West Middle School, you probably knew him. I don't think most people did, maybe heard the name. And he comes in and we're going and hyping up on Analyst Hour. So he right away came in with incredibly high expectations and he delivered. He scored about 14 or 15 of our points. As I said on last episode, he was the only shot creator in the game, and that did prove to be the difference. He was getting separation off the dribble, which no one else was doing. And with the incredible defense that was being played on both sides, that was the difference in the game. He got 14 points. He's an incredibly intelligent player. He drew up plays for us. He was screen setting. He was cutting. He put us in the right spots. And it really paid off. And I think that for the Black Bears, Arvin and Cole are both way better players than what they showed that day. I'd even like to say the same about myself. But in terms of them, they both did not play to their potential. Arvin had a rough shooting day. I think Louis and George's defense did play a factor in that. But I think the Black Bears should have their head high. They're going to have Silva back. They're going to have Luke back, who we've talked about as a candidate for most improved. So I think there's a lot of room to grow from them. And for the Legion, you can't be content. It was a weird game with the amount of players missing. And, it's 22-4, but you got to keep your heads down and go in as if we haven't accomplished anything, because really we haven't at this point.
Steve.
Yeah, so I'm looking at 4 points. I'm looking at the score, and I'm thinking, can Silva, when he's there, can he impact offensive end enough to carry? Because there's no they shouldn't have 4 points that's rough. Obviously it's week 1, so it's obviously time to make overreactions and all that. And we've seen slow starts from Silva and Cole before. But that wasn't, because going forward now for the Legion too, I think Louis I hadn't seen him play really before. And I'm like, he has so much skill, and I think he can even take it up a notch, and he should be the number 1 option. And that's pretty much all I had going forward for the Legion, especially next week. a lot of talk around the league where people see the Legion not as one of the stronger teams, respectfully. And so now here's a great opportunity for them. Go next week we'll talk about it later, obviously, but good opportunity for them to go up in the standings.
Yeah, I'm going to try to say this as respectfully as possible. If I were to give an award for the ugliest game I've ever witnessed with my two eyes, it would go to the Legion and Black Bears game. I said it on Sunday. If you told me a team smoked another team 22-4, I would have assumed that game had lasted 6 minutes. And obviously that wasn't the case for you guys. If there was an opportunity for both teams to walk out losers, it was that one. Louis looked incredible. Everyone else looked like they had a lot of rust to shake off, which is totally fine. That is week one. Despite me being very critical of this game, by no means do I think any team should have their hazards on or anything like that. If I'm Silva, Steven, I think you bring up a really good point. Like you draft a team, attendance is very important. Silva obviously can't be there to carry 100% of the weight every time. I think the Black Bears looked like scared puppies. And I think at the end of the day, Legion had the activity and the drive to lopside it 22-4. But hats off to Louis. I would not be concerned if I'm a Black Bear. I would not be concerned if I'm a Legion. I think you guys both have to write that off and kind of just sweep it under the rug because my God, was that a hard watch. But nonetheless, let's slide things over to game two, which are the Thunderbirds and the Seabirds. Mike, what were your takeaways?
I mean, I feel like you played in the game. You should probably go first, and we can kind of fill in whatever else there is.
All right. The Seabirds, obviously without Carter and Nick. That's tough, especially game one. With that being said, I thought Gergis and Nick Germano demonstrated that they want to win and they are very capable of winning. The game was very, very close for the first half. Gergis opened his mouth, started chirping Colin, and unfortunately, Colin didn't really look back. I think overall, this game went very much as expected. Colin did majority of the weight. I thought Ty looked great. From what I heard, he just kind of came off the couch. I thought he played his role very, very well. Most players have a hard time adjusting to the intensity of the league, but he was kind of lucky with the sense that their two best players were not there. Yeah, Colin looked great. I thought Ty looked great. I said this to Gergis. I think if he wants the Seabirds to find a lot of success, he's going to have to be the locker room lifeline. It's a gift and a curse, his attitude to the game. He chirps, he brings a lot of passion, and I think that's great. And he needs to make sure that that serves the benefit of the Seabirds. I want him to be in Nick's ear, reminding him of the urgency of every game. There's only 7 regular season games. One of them is already in the books. They're down 0-1 in a divisional game. He needs to be in Nick's ear, and it shouldn't be Gergis's or second round picks responsibility to do it, but that is the case. So I'm looking at Gergis to kind of put the emotional burden on his shoulders and install urgency in his team. But I thought him and Germano played incredibly well, and I'll close my case there.
Yep, I would agree. I think, as you said, Tyler came into the league. I mean, there were some expectations there, and I think his post play was scary. I don't think Collins. I guess he played with Carter, but Carter's more of a putback guy, kind of drives and pick and roll. Tyler Trapp's a pure post player. I don't think Collins ever had that before, and I think once he gets to, as you said, he came off the couch. I don't think he shot incredible from 3, but we saw him do it the game he subbed, and if he gets there, it's going to be really scary.
I think he hit 2 threes.
Did he?
I think at least one.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, but we all know he can shoot, and when he gets there, assuming he gets a good night's sleep, it's scary for the rest of the league that Colin has on his team, and we've talked about that. I think Dan looked, he picked up where he left off. He shot his threes, they went in. I thought he had a few good post plays. I don't think we've seen from before, but Dan, you know what you're going to get out of Dan. He brought that. Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to carry a team against Colin. Germano was good, aggressive on the drive, and I think you played your part perfectly as you always do with the facilitating and locking up your guy. And Trot as well deserves a nod for coming in as a sub and filling his role.
We'll be seeing a lot of Trot this year.
Yeah, and he did a good job. But yeah, not too much to add besides that. But it could be really scary. I don't think we should take too much away from it, given what the Seabirds had on the floor without their captain and first round pick. But could be a scary year for the T-Birds for sure.
Yeah, you guys covered it pretty well. T-Birds did exactly what they were supposed to do, dominant win. Um, I watched the game back. With Collins teams, you get a lot of ISO, you get a lot of team ball. Like it's a healthy mixture of both. And I thought it was very encouraging for you guys to, like, we saw a lot of both, and it worked well for you guys. So, I have written down Ty is good, Andrew, great passes. So kept it simple, took care of business. I watched a little bit of it. Seabirds, it was like 6-2 at the start. Next thing you know, the final score is like 21, whatever. So I think, when you're down two guys like they were, Gergis you came out firing. And I think that you should have just kept, when you're down, you got to try to make some magic happen. And they kind of shied away from the three ball, but they still fought hard. And I think they're gonna be just fine.
I think Gergis's shooting has gotten better.
Yeah.
Like I think he's been taking more shots, but I think his efficiency has also paralleled as well.
Yeah,
So
he's on the small list of guys who can like consistently knock down open contested threes.
yeah, no, he looked great. I thought Germano looked great. Um, and I actually have to loop back to them in one of our other further segments. But then we're gonna head over to the Hoopers and Sizzlers game. This is the two teams that actually made a preseason transaction, which is very exciting. Unfortunately, Jesse was sidelined, but there, which I love to see. Great game. Few things I learned. Curtin can make anybody look like gold. He can really be a one-man show, but he can also make the people around him look really good. That is scary. I think a lot of people were overlooking the Hoopers going into this week, especially against a favorite in the Sizzlers. I think they came out with a lot of noise. Mbutter's activity, Campbell's finesse, and Jack's overall skill is something I think the Hoopers, like, we need to keep a closer look on the Hoopers. Um, Sizzlers, absolute brutes. We know every game with them is going to be one of the longer ones. Their offense is definitely going to be a work in progress. I love to see them mixing up with attacking the inside. Connor hit a few threes as well. So they are definitely going to have to develop versatility in this scheme because their skill is not going to be the thing that's holding them back. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with about everything you said. I think watching that game at the beginning, both of those teams looked incredibly rusty. There was an insane amount of unforced turnovers, which I think, and they both played. They at the end of the day, they turned around and played well. I think that means they both have a lot of room to improve. More, I would look at it more of that way in a positive light, rather than the fact that it's week one, you should be rusty, and I think they both showed it. And I think week seven, the product that they both put on the offensive end will be cleaned up and better. I'd say I'm feeling, despite the loss, I'm feeling pretty good about my Curtin MVP pick because he showed that he can bring that team on his back, and if they are going to make the playoffs, it's going to be hard to pick someone else because he did a great job. He found Mburu in his spots. He found Prentice in his spots. Fu was, we've been clamoring for Fu to be more aggressive, and he absolutely was. He's kind of worked in that post fade in the mid range a lot more, and it's worked out great for him. And I think the rest of the guys, Schuwerk, AJ, I hope I'm not missing anyone off the top of my head, but they picked up. They gave you what you'd expect. Sure, with his defense, AJ with his grit and IQ. They picked up where they left off, and I think I'm really impressed with the Hoopers despite the loss. And I think they're in a good spot, and I think that team should not underestimate them going forward because of what Curtin can do.
Yeah. But Steve, before we hand it off to you, one assignment I'm going to hand Connor is I want to see him leverage Owen more. He has, in my opinion, one of the best pound for pound rebounders in the league. And I think putting Owen out there is not going to take anything away from the team. So if you need to give Schuwerk rest or AJ rest, like I think he needs to lean into that. But that's my 2 cents. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. But in terms of the game, nothing really surprised me there. Um, the Hoopers I definitely overlooked them. I thought and Buru shocked me. Like that kid never gives up. And like in the league like this, like what more could you ask for out of a was he a fourth? Was he the fourth round or a second round pick? Right.
Second round.
Pick, right. So you got two really similar teams, right? You got team full built of athletes, uh, good defenders, inconsistent shooting, and like just basically pretty much like non-basketball players just going after it. And those are the best kinds of games. Like they're fun to watch, right? When it gets close down to the end, everyone's exhausted. Each shot goes up, and you're like, you're so into it. And so, yeah, that's all I got for that one.
All right, Steve, I'm actually going to hand the mic back to you. We're going to go to the Dogs and the Phantom. What are your initial takeaways?
Yeah, so as an analyst, I thought, this was how it was going to go. I knew it was going to be, relatively close. In any game with Alex is going to be close. Um, but I think the Phantom outshot us from three. Now I'm not an analyst right now. They outshot us from three. If you would have told me that they're gonna outshoot us from three and we'd still win, that's a dream come true. I would be so happy. And I thought going back to the Phantom, the fact that they hit a ton of threes. They hit, Pete everyone hit a three. Cadigan, Ryan hit a three maybe. You'd think of them as a more interior team. So if you can open up the outside, that opens up so many opportunities for those guys. So another team where they're gonna have to battle, especially in that conference. And then Pete played amazing too. I thought Pete played really well.
Yeah, Pete showed a lot of grit.
And then
Live, watch his three
one more thing
live.
for the Dogs, I think the Dogs, they didn't play their best. Pat missed a lot of open shots. Tyler got off to a hot start, but then cooled off. I hit 1 3, so like obviously there's some rust, but still very happy with how it went for us.
Yeah, Mike, what were your takeaways?
Yeah, I think relatively similar. I mean, I definitely one of my biggest critique of the Phantom was, if Ryan doesn't get that shot back, they're gonna be in trouble. And he got that shot back. I think the Phantom should be very encouraged. I think my Phantom missing the playoff take could be in trouble if Ryan plays like that every day. I mean, we got to think their spread was +5, assuming they were full strength, and obviously they didn't have a pass depoy and still only lost by 5 points, and it really could have gone either way. So I think they should have their heads held high. Pisacreta picked up where he left off. Pete, he did a lot of the little things for that team with his defense, his defensive communication, rebounding, screen setting. And I think for the Dogs, I think it was very clear, which Steve basically said earlier in the podcast, but he really gave his team the green light and they delivered for the most part. I know Baraldi cooled off, and I don't think Pat necessarily played to his potential, but his team had the green light. Even CJ was getting some shots up, and you want to see him get involved off the bench as well. I think the Dogs showed that they are at their best. And Steve, you could agree or disagree with me. I think they're at their best when Steve is attacking the basket. Because I think Steve's finishing is one of the better finishing in the league. I don't think that's a secret, but it just opens up so much for his teammates where if Steve is attacking the basket, it's an immediate double. You're going to have an open shot because of it. So I think the Dogs are very terrifying when Steve's driving. But I know there's not a lot of moral victories for this in this league, but I think the Phantom should have one because of how close they kept it.
Mike, I think you hit the nail on the head with your last two takes right there. I think the Dogs are at the best when Steven is attacking the rim. He's obviously gonna draw a double, perhaps a triple. It's gonna leave Tyler open. It's gonna leave Pat open just to kind of allow them to get to work. And the closest thing to a moral victory we have so far is that Phantom loss. I think Pisacreta is such a killer. You want to talk about a guy who doesn't quit. He comes in with such a competitive edge. Again, he has his strategy and his scheme on the wall, yet it is very challenging to stop it. Him and Steve finish incredibly at the rim. Ryan, played very well as well. He's only going to develop. He's only going to get better. All this without Dennis as well. I think this is a game between Pete, Ryan, and Alex where everyone pulled their appropriate weight, and it's scary to add a former depoy to that team going forward. So that pretty much wraps us up for the week one takeaways. But Steve, starting with you, I want to do one round of give me one thing that you learned from week one.
Yeah, I think this is it's kind of an obvious one, but I think that the Eastern Conference is just going to be a battle throughout the entire season, especially after how well the Phantom played too against the Dogs. And obviously we saw the Sizzlers and Hoopers go at it. The Phantom, they were down 8-2, and then in like 2 minutes they came back. It was 9-8. They were winning. So those guys, they can compete with anyone on any stage, and I just think it's exciting. It's like it makes every game so that much more important. But I think one thing I learned, the East just going to be dogfight all year.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Mike.
Yeah, I mean that conference, I would say it's no secret the East is a stronger conference than the West. My thing I learned, I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about the increase in the middle class this year and what's it going to do? Are role players going to matter more? And well, I do think it's a good thing, and I do think the importance of role players has increased over the years. We learned that teams are only going to go as far as their best players take them, and that's been the case the entire time. I mean, you look at that Sizzlers Hoopers game. I don't know the exact totals, we don't know the stats done yet, but I feel like Fu and Curtin both had at least 16. In my game, we won because Louis had 15. Thunderbirds game, Colin had to have had 15. And Steve, I don't know what you finished with, but it's just the point. I know you got at least 14 or something. So the point is that teams can, the middle class is great, and role players still have a huge role in this league, but you're only going to go as far as your stars take you. And it's kind of an obvious one, but it's just that's very much still the case.
The one thing I learned out of week one is the Black Bears need to have one practice where they discuss roles and divvy up a scheme. I think they have all the right pieces. But right now, I feel like they don't have an identity. So one thing I learned is that they need to develop a scheme. By no means a hot take, but something that was glowing. I'm very high on their individual players. I'm also very high on them as a formative group, but they have yet to reach the formative part. So that's one thing that I learned. Before we wrap up week one entirely, I asked you guys to jot down some winners and losers of week one. Now, this can vary from teams, but it could also vary to a player. So I would love to kick us off with one of my winners, and that winner is Nick Resendez. If I'm Nick Resendez and I watched game one, I would have said to myself, I have a very capable and competitive team. I didn't even show up. My first round pick didn't even show up. And these guys did an incredible job carrying the weight with the sub. I would say Nick Resendez is a winner out of week one. Mike, who is one of your winners from week one?
I mean, I kind of just touched on it, and this is kind of surprising they lost the game. I think the Phantom should consider themselves winners because of how they played going. I don't think I didn't have super high expectations. I don't think anyone had very high expectations week one without your depoy. And with Ryan shooting like that, I think when Ryan and Pissy develop actual chemistry, it's going to be scary. I don't think they've played a ton together, and it showed. But at the end of the day, when they figure it out and develop that chemistry, even work in a pick and roll once in a while, it's going to be scary. Pete's going to bring that intensity off the bench, and he played great defensively, rebounding. And so I think the Phantom definitely are winners despite the loss. And you could argue the same about the Hoopers.
Steve, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I got two things. I think I have the Sizzlers as a winner, and here's why. I think it's because in years past or last year, like Connor and Matt teams, they'll get in these fights with other teams, close, long, hard fought games, and then they don't come out on top. And I think them winning this game and knowing that they can compete, make it close. They're gonna be in every game, obviously, but them coming out on top in a game like that, I think it should be a huge confidence booster for them. I also had Pete as a winner because I thought Pete played unbelievable. Like his defense, his rebounding was the best I've probably ever seen it. He hit a three. He almost hit the second three. One of the threes he missed should have gone in. I don't know how it missed, but those rims are crazy. Um, but like with Pete, a player like Pete who plays as hard as he can at all times, like a great way for him to make an impact like that is the little things like offensive rebounding, hustling for loose balls. Like the guys who can score in this league, like the Collins, Connors, Curtins, all those guys, they're not LeBron, they're not Curry, they're not going to hit every shot. This is, street ball. So like you make hustle plays like that builds your confidence. Then you get an opportunity to shoot, right? You're confident, you're hot, you're playing well, and probably more likely to go in. So like I thought he should look at this game and think, wow, I played great and let's just build off of it. So I thought Pete did a good job this week.
Another winner I have is Louis Gallegani. Mikey kind of already touched on this, and this is kind of our fault. We put a lot of pressure on Louis Gallegani coming into week one. We hyped him up incredibly. We said, if you don't take Louis at one, you made the wrong choice. Louis came in without his captain and delivered. I thought he demonstrated his skill, how he can make tough shots, how he can create his own shots, how he can facilitate. I have Louis Gallegani as a week one winner.
Let me throw Tyler Baraldi in there too for the reasons we discussed earlier. Going to a team with Steve, obviously you're playing alongside the GOAT, and you don't know how many shots you're going to get. As we've already talked about that, what your role is going to be. And Steve, credit to you for giving him a clear cut role, giving him the green light. And I think he could have another great season like he did with the Spartans, which was obviously a concern going into the season. So he should definitely feel like a winner and getting the starting nod too.
Steve, do you have any more winners on your list?
I had the Hoopers, but it's just that.
All right. With the good comes the bad. Now it is time to discuss the week one losers. Steve, start us off.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Seabirds because yes, they were down two key guys, obviously, but now like they're a game behind, and now they have to like Carter's out next week too, so they're not gonna have a full healthy roster in a game until week 3, 4, whatever it is. So I think that presents a pretty big challenge for them moving forward is building that on-court team chemistry, and then just again, they got to fight with in that conference as well. So we'll see how they do it.
Mike?
One of the losers I have, and I hate to say it, just going into week one, has to be Owen Bollinger, not because of his play, but because of the lack of play he had. I think Connor Fu is a great captain, is a great leader for many things, but there have been allegations thrown that he doesn't play as fourth man, and I was hoping that would change as a fourth man, as a strong fourth man advocate. In week one, it didn't. It was a 45-minute game. Obviously, they got the win. They can't be too upset. And Connor does deserve praise for listening to us and changing his offensive game and their offense. But in terms of playing Owen, I watched, he couldn't have got more than 2-3 minutes in a 45-minute game. He has an incredible vertical. He's a great rebounder. It probably wasn't top of mind for Connor in such a close game. So we can give him the benefit of the doubt, the 6 weeks to change it. But I really would. You said earlier, Owen belongs on the floor more than 3 minutes in a 45-minute game. And I would say he's a loser for that reason, and hopefully he gets more looks.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I have one loser for this week, and it is simply the Black Bears. I just think they got the most ground to make up. I mean, 4 points is definitely raises some eyebrows, pretty alarming. Although I personally think they do have the pieces to fix it, as you know. But I'm a senior analyst, man. So to the casual, they gotta be the loser coming out of week one. So I guess we'll cap it there. I don't have any more losers. Steve, do you?
Nope.
Let me throw one more. Let me throw one more.
Okay.
Sub pool.
The Phantom are losers.
No. They deserve their flowers. The sub pool. I mean, no disrespect to Alex Trottier, but him being the best sub in the pool is definitely the captain's got to show up. The sub pool is not what it was in years prior. So yeah, you got to have your best players show up.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. No, Alex Trottier as a perfect sub. We're going to see him pretty much every week. But yeah, unfortunately, our access to a variety of skilled guys has dwindled down tremendously. So Mike makes a good point. Make sure your best player shows up because our sub pool has taken a huge hit. All right, guys. Enough about week one. The past is in the past. We got to set our sights forward. You can't look backwards or else you're going to trip going forward. So we got week two coming up. We tried to do our roster inactives report early. We couldn't get to every team. We are anticipating a lot of absences this weekend due to it being a holiday. So I have the spreads. I put it into the generator. We are going to talk about your take. So we're obviously, Steve, this is your first time. You're going to make a ticket with us like Connor did last. We're going to talk about the spreads. We want to know your pick. And I also want to hear some coaching prescriptions on how the underdog can win. So let's kick us off. For week two, we have the Legion taking on the Thunderbirds. Unfortunately, Colin and Tyler will be out. So we will be in a very similar situation to the Seabirds were in week one. It is going to be Ian, myself, and I believe the sub will be Alex Trottier. ChatGPT is aware of this. Therefore, it gave the Legion, who will be full attendance to our knowledge, 5.5 point favorites. I guess I'll kick us off. Always got to bet on yourself. I say we're going to cover. Obviously, I think it's going to take a lot of, pick and rolls, a lot of activity, a lot of cuts. I'm going to have to hold my weight guarding one of the top two guys. Alex Trottier is going to have to hold his weight guarding one of the top two guys. Ian is going to have the responsibility of guarding George and you. We need a lot of activity out of him that I have full faith that he can give us. We're going to have to use our timeouts wisely because we're only going to have 3 guys out there. We're not going to have the privilege of resting, but I'll leave it there. Mike, you're obviously got skin in this game. Who are you taking with Legion as 5.5 point favorites?
I mean, yeah, it's no secret. I'm going to take us to win and to cover. I think a lot of the league is excited, and myself obviously included, is excited to see Costa and Louis finally play together. We will be at full strength, and you guys are going to have a lot of ground to make up without Colin and Tyler Trapp, but it doesn't mean the Legion can take you guys lightly. Anyone can get hot at any moment. Trot's a great sub as well. So it's going to be a good game. Hopefully it's a cleaner game than was just played without Costa on our end. And yeah, I do expect us to get the job done, but it doesn't mean we can take you guys lightly for sure. All 3 of you guys are very capable players.
Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Legion to win, not to cover, though. And I say that because I think the Legion, going back to their last week's performance, like, we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know what kind of game it's going to be. Obviously, they're the favorite. And I think that, Andrew, you guys just go into that game with, like, it's very encouraging you got the win last week. So if you do fall behind, it's not the end of the world, but you just got to play with nothing to lose and just no fear. And then I think you guys can compete with those guys too.
All right, we will head over to game 2, Seabirds and the Black Bears. As of right now, the only absence we have is Carter for the Seabirds. ChatGPT is aware of this. Therefore, it gave the Black Bears, who to our knowledge is full attendance, 2.5 point favorites. This was a really tough one for me. I think this is an incredible line. I'm going to have, and these are 2 teams that I'm high on the Seabirds, and I think the Blackbirds have the right pieces to do it. I'm going to have the Blackbirds to win, but not cover. I think this is going to be an absolute dogfight. I think it's going to be raining threes from Gergis. I think Germano is going to play great defensively, and I think Resendez is going to demonstrate his skill through facilitating, perimeter defending, and finishing. However, I think the return of Nick Silva throws such a wrench in the Seabirds' plans. I think this is going to be a very hard defensive matchup for the Seabirds with Nick Silva, Cole, and Arvin. I think Arvin has a very slept on three. It obviously wasn't hitting so hot last week. I have full faith that he is going to switch it. So, with that being said, I'm going to have the the Black Bears to win, but ultimately not cover. I think it's going to be a brawl. What do you think, Mike?
Just to confirm, was Black Bears -2.5?
Correct.
All right, I am still going to take the Seabirds both to win and to cover. And this game, I want to add, cannot be understated or overstated. I don't know what the term is. It's so important because they're both 0-1, a loss to a division opponent. They now play another opponent. So if you start 0-2, you are not only 0-2, but two of your three division rivals have the tiebreaker over you. Huge game. I think I'm going to take the Seabirds to win, which means they're going to cover. I think if Dan Gerges can light a spark on Nick Resendez's ass, he can be the best player in that game. Dan and Germano both had incredibly encouraging week one performances, and they're only going to build off it. The team's only going to develop chemistry. So if they all play their games, they're in good shape. Obviously, Silva, he's coming off of a finals appearance last time. He showed up, very capable player on both ends of the floor. But we really need to see more out of that supporting cast than we saw in week one. It was very clear they hadn't played together, and hopefully they can get a practice and hopefully they can go over stuff, as you said. But I think that team is going to take some time to kick into gear. I think they do have a very high ceiling, but I think it's going to take time to get there, and they need to get experience together. And I don't know if it's all going to click week two. Hopefully Luke is back and maybe he can help them stretch the floor as well. But I think until that team has more experience playing together other than Cole and Silva, it's going to be very tough for them, and I'm going to take the Seabirds to win. I do think it'll be a close game, but I'll say they'll win and cover without Carter.
I pretty much agree with you all the way there, Mike. I think they're going to win and cover. I think the loss of Carter is huge, especially because of how much size the Black Bears have. But at the end of the day, I think the Seabirds adding Nick back to that team, coming off their week one performance, they just have a touch bit more firepower, and they're coming off, like I just said, a good decent performance week one. So I got Seabirds in that one, in a very very close game.
Yeah. Now heading over to game 3, Dogs and Sizzlers. I'm very high on the Sizzlers. I think they're an incredible team. I think they have an incredibly high ceiling. I think they're I think they have the deepest team. However, I think ChatGPT was a little bit generous with this line. I'm going to take the Dogs to win. The line is Dogs -0.5. So obviously, I think the Dogs are going to win and cover. I've lived by a rule for over 2 years now. Don't bet against Stephen Shaw. So I'm gonna stick it there. I think it's gonna be an absolute brawl. But I think it's going to have to take the Sizzlers to be at their absolute best. I think that's a pretty hard ask at week 2. So I'm going to take the Dogs to win and then obviously cover.
Yeah, did you mention Pat Arsh is not going to be there, right?
Pat Arsh is not going to be there. Thank you, Michael.
Well, and
ChatGPT is aware of this.
That's a key factor for me because I would probably go the other way if Pat Arsh was there. Because he's not, I'm going to take the Sizzlers to win and cover. I think it's going to be a close game regardless. I think Steve is obviously it's no secret he can put the cape on and carry them very well. But at the end of the day, when you look at Fu, who's a capable captain, his supporting cast is just much stronger than Steve's. And though I said you're only going to go as far as your best player takes you earlier, I think that having AJ, Schuwerk, and Bollinger as in comparison to Brawley and CJ is going to be enough for Connor to overcome Steve. I don't think there needs to be too much elaboration there. I mean, especially with Steve just mentioned, Schuwerk is one of the best players, one of his 2 nightmare matchups in the league, if there is any for him. So I think all that factored in, it's going to be really tough for the Dogs to come by much points outside of Steve when you have, what is it going to be, AJ on Baraldi or Fu on Baraldi, AJ on CJ. It's going to be tough to get much help just because they're such great defenders and they should be guarding captains of first round picks, not second and third round picks. So I'm going to take the Sizzlers. I still think Steve will very well keep it close, but I'm going to take the Sizzlers to win. And obviously that means they'll cover as well.
I'm gonna agree with you, Mike, there. Obviously, as a member of the Dogs, I believe we're gonna win and I wanna win. But like from an analyst perspective, like this is the Sizzlers' opportunity to jump out to a conference lead. Like no Pat is gonna be a huge loss, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Um, but again, like this game, this is Connor. This is their favorite game of the year, in my opinion. I think they match up very well against us, and obviously I want to win. Obviously, you know, but I think this is the opportunity for the Sizzlers.
Wow, that's a first. Humble man. We will hop over to the Phantom and Hoopers. To our knowledge,
Sorry to interrupt.
oh,
I have a source from the Dogs I talked to. They're gonna have something special cooked up for that matchup. So
the
it'll be in.
Sizzlers are.
No, the Dogs are for the Sizzlers. So
Oh, okay.
well, it'll be a good game either
I'll
way.
have to keep a close eye
Stay
on that.
tuned.
Thank you for that insider scoop. We'll head over to the Phantom and the Hoopers. As of right now, the only absence we know is going to be Campbell for the Hoopers. Jesse is going to be. We will know based on the doctor's clearance come Friday. So that could result in a sub, or it could result in seeing Jesse Finn get his ASL debut. Nonetheless, it's going to be exciting. Phantom should be good. So ChatGPT generated the line as Phantom as -3.5 point favorites. This is going to be another really good matchup. I'm really excited for this one. You have very active captains with pretty good supporting casts. However, I think the loss of Campbell is going to be pretty hard on the Hoopers. I think it's going to be Jack's toughest matchup in a long time, even dating back to last season. With that said, I do have the Phantom winning. However, I do not have them covering. I think the Hoopers are going to keep this within 3. It's going to be an absolute brawl. I'm really excited to watch the matchup, but that's on my slip. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. I'm going to take the Phantom to win and the Hoopers to cover. I might have gone differently if the Hoopers were at full strength, but it's going to be really tough for them to find a body to put on Ryan. I mean, Jack Curtin does a lot of incredible things, but I think interior defense is, against a guy who's 4 inches taller than him. I don't think that's not anyone's forte. So I think he's going to will them to be within 3, but especially after how encouraging the Phantom looked without Dennis. When you add a D point into the mix, it's going to be even scarier. I think that he's going to push. He's going to do as good of a job on Curtin as anyone will in this league, and it's going to be really tough for the Hoopers. I'm really excited to see Jesse's debut. I'm glad he's taking it slow and waiting for the doctors to clear him and everything, and hopefully they do. Obviously, the sub isn't set, but it's gonna you can't replace a former deep boy and the size and IQ of Campbell. So I'm gonna take the Phantom to win and Curtin to will them to keep it a close game.
I'm gonna take the Phantom to win and cover. I think Campbell is just a massive loss for them on defense. And in terms of matchups, I think this throughout the whole season, like this Alex versus Curtin matchup is just one of the best we're gonna watch, and I'm really excited to see them play against each other.
Yeah, I mean, they're the two most athletic guys in the league. I don't know what the game of the week will be.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones.
I mean, this one thing I wish I could go back in time. One thing I learned is that this league is a lot closer than we all thought it was going to be. Um, Maybe that's the growth of the middle class, Mike. Maybe that's what it really was. I think people really wrote off the Hoopers very quickly. People wrote off the Legion very quickly. Sure, it's only week 1, but what I learned is that this league is a lot closer, and therefore the championship is a lot more wide open than we were thinking. Um, That's all we have for you guys today. Steven, thank you so much for joining us in the booth. We love to get you back sometime soon. Do you have any final remarks before we sign off?
Thank you guys for having me. I'd happily come back on. And just like we just talking about, this league has gotten so much better and it's so much more fun. Each year it gets better and better, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. And credit to you guys too for making this all happen. I feel like you guys don't get enough credit for all this, so just thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, guys, signing off. Tune in next week.